I never thought a family dinner would change everything I believed about my childhood, my parents, and especially my brother. That night started like any other monthly obligation at my parents' suburban home. The food was the same. The conversation predictably tense, but I had no idea what lurked beneath the surface. As we sat around my mother's carefully arranged dining table, my 15-year-old daughter Lily suddenly grabbed my arm. Her face had drained of all color. She leaned in, close, her voice trembling as she whispered, "Mom, we need to leave. Now." When I asked what was wrong, her eyes darted downward. "You didn't look under the table," she said. So I did, and what I found beneath that polished oak would eventually tear my family apart. I'm Selena Harrison, 37, a single mom running a small graphic design business in Fairview, Connecticut. Like clockwork, every third Sunday, Lily and I drive 20 minutes to my parents' house for dinner. These visits always leave me emotionally drained, but I keep going because I believe family matters even when it's difficult. That Sunday in October was particularly chilly, matching the atmosphere that always seemed to hover between my parents and me. I parked in the familiar driveway of the colonial-style house, where I grew up, taking an extra moment to prepare myself. "Ready for another exciting episode of the Harrison family dinner?" I asked Lily with a forced smile. Lily rolled her eyes but smiled back. At 15, she understood family dynamics better than most adults. As long as Grandma made her apple pie, I can tolerate Grandpa's political rants. My relationship with my parents had always been complicated. Howard and Martha Harrison were respectable pillars of the community. Dad, a retired accountant, Mom, a former school administrator. They had always expected perfection, and while I had been a straight-A student, started my own business, and raised a wonderful daughter after my divorce 5 years ago, somehow it was never quite enough. My younger brother Jake, however, could do no wrong in their eyes. Despite his spotty employment history and tendency to borrow money, they always made excuses for him. "He's finding his way," they'd say. Or, "He's just more of a free spirit than you, Selena." When we entered, Mom was arranging a centerpiece of autumn flowers, while Dad poured himself a scotch. "There you are," Mom said, giving Lily a warm hug, while offering me a quick pat on the shoulder. "Lily, you look prettier every time I see you. Have you grown another inch?" Dad nodded at me before turning his full attention to Lily. "There's my favorite granddaughter. How's that science project coming along?" "It's good," Lily replied. "We're studying ecosystem disruption. I'm focusing on how introducing new species affects established environments." "Smart girl," Dad said proudly, as if her intelligence had nothing to do with me. "You get that from my side of the family." I bit my tongue and moved to the kitchen to help Mom. "Jake's running late," she informed me, her tone already defensive. "He had some important errands to run." "No surprise there," I muttered, earning a sharp look from her. 20 minutes later, we were seated at the table when Jake finally arrived, entering without knocking. At 34, my brother still had the boyish charm that had gotten him out of trouble his whole life. But tonight something seemed off. His eyes darted around the room and he kept checking his phone. "Sorry I'm late," he said, though he didn't sound sorry at all. "Traffic was a nightmare." Dad immediately poured him a drink. "No problem, son." We just sat down. Throughout dinner, Jake seemed jumpy, his leg constantly bouncing under the table. When he spoke, it was mostly to question me about my life in ways that felt invasive. "So how's business really going, Selena?" "Making enough to keep the lights on?" he asked with a smirk. "The business is thriving, actually. Just signed 2 new corporate clients last month." Must be nice having all that free time as your own boss." "I bet Lily practically raises herself these days," he said, glancing at my daughter. I felt my jaw tighten. "I work from home specifically to be there for Lily." Mom quickly intervened. "Jake's just teasing, Selena. You know how siblings are." She turned to Jake. "How's your job search going, dear?" Jake shifted in his seat. "Actually, I've got something big in the works. Can't really talk about it yet, but it's going to be huge." Dad nodded approvingly. "That's great, son. I always said you had an entrepreneurial spirit." I noticed my parents exchanging glances whenever Jake spoke, something cautious in their expressions. They seemed to be walking on eggshells around him, which was new. Usually they just enabled his behavior without question. After we finished the main course, Lily excused herself to use the bathroom. When she returned a few minutes later, I immediately noticed something was wrong. Her face had lost all color, and her hands were shaking slightly as she sat back down. She barely touched her dessert, and kept glancing nervously at Jake, who was now dominating the conversation with a story about how he'd nearly been recruited by a tech startup. That's when Lily leaned over, her breath warm against my ear, as she whispered those words that would change everything. "Mom, we need to leave. Now." Alarmed, I whispered back, "What happened?" She glanced down meaningfully. "You didn't look under the table." Confused, I casually dropped my napkin and bent to retrieve it. What I saw made my blood run cold. Secured to the underside of the table was a small digital recording device, its red light blinking steadily. As I scanned further, I noticed another one positioned to capture the entire dinner table conversation. I straightened up, my heart pounding. "Jake, why is there a recording device under the table?" I asked, directly interrupting his story. The room went silent. Jake's expression changed from surprise to anger in an instant. "What were you doing snooping around?" he snapped. "Answer the question, Jake," I insisted, feeling Lily tense beside me. Dad cleared his throat. "Now, Selena, I'm sure there's an explanation." "I'm gathering evidence," Jake said defiantly. "This family has secrets, and I'm documenting everything." "Evidence?" Of what? I stood up, pulling Lily with me. "We're leaving." Mom rose quickly. "Don't be dramatic, Selena. Jake is just going through a phase." "A phase? He's 34 years old and secretly recording family conversations. This isn't normal." Jake laughed, but there was something unhinged about it. "Normal? Nothing about this family has ever been normal. I'm just the only one willing to expose the truth." As we headed for the door, my parents followed, pleading with us to stay, making excuses for Jake's behavior. I grabbed our coats and ushered Lily out to the car. Once we were driving away, Lily finally spoke. "Mom, there were more. Not just under the table. I saw them when I went to the bathroom. There's one hidden in the air vent in the hallway, and another one disguised as a picture frame in the guest bathroom. I think Uncle Jake is recording everything that happens in that house." I gripped the steering wheel tighter, a chill running down my spine. "Did you see anything else?" She nodded slowly. "In the bathroom cabinet behind the towels, there was a folder. I shouldn't have looked, but it had your name on it. Inside were printouts of your emails and screenshots of your social media messages. And there were photos, Mom. Photos of us at home through our windows." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just strange behavior. This was stalking. By my own brother. And somehow my parents seemed to know about it. I reached for my phone to call the police, then hesitated. This was my family. But as I glanced at my daughter's frightened face, I knew that protecting her came first before any family loyalty. "We're going to figure this out," I promised Lily, though I had no idea how deep this rabbit hole would go. The next morning, my phone began ringing at 6. Mom had called 4 times by the time I got out of the shower, leaving increasingly agitated voicemails. "Selena, you're overreacting. Call me back. Your brother is going through a difficult time. We need to support him. This is a family matter. We don't need to involve outsiders." The final message had an edge of panic. "Please don't do anything hasty. Your father and I are very concerned about how you're handling this." I silenced my phone and made Lily breakfast before school. She'd had trouble sleeping, checking her window locks repeatedly during the night. As she picked at her waffles, I realized I needed advice from someone outside the family bubble. "I'm going to talk to Tracy today," I told Lily, referring to my friend who had been a police officer for 12 years. "I want her opinion on all this." Lily nodded, relief crossing her face. "Good. This feels really scary, Mom." After dropping Lily at school, I called Tracy and arranged to meet at a coffee shop far from my usual haunts. Something told me discretion was important now. Tracy listened without interruption as I recounted what had happened, her expression growing increasingly concerned. "Selena, this isn't just weird family drama," she said when I finished. "Recording people without consent is illegal in Connecticut. And the surveillance photos you mentioned, that's stalking behavior." "But it's my brother," I said, the words sounding hollow even to me. Tracy reached across the table and squeezed my hand, "which makes it more concerning, not less." Family stalkers can be the most dangerous because they have access knowledge of your routines and a sense of entitlement to your life. What should I do? Document everything. Start a detailed log of every incident. Change your locks, passwords, security questions. Check your car for tracking devices. And honestly, you might want to consider a restraining order. The thought of legally barring my brother from contacting me seemed extreme, but the memory of those recording devices and Lily's frightened face strengthened my resolve. That afternoon, I received a text from an old college friend, Brenda. "Hey, is everything okay with you?" Jake called me, asking some really weird questions about your daily schedule and whether you're seeing anyone. It felt off. My stomach dropped. I called Brenda immediately. "When did he contact you?" I asked. "A couple weeks ago. Then again yesterday. He said he was planning a surprise for you but was weirdly interested in when you're home alone, and if you ever mentioned being concerned about home security." I got a bad vibe. After speaking with Brenda, I checked in with other friends. 3 more reported similar conversations with Jake over the past month. He was mapping my life, gathering information about my routines. When Lily came home from school, she had more to share. "Uncle Jake cornered me at Grandma's birthday last month," she said, sitting at our kitchen island. "He asked if we have cameras at home, if we set the alarm when we leave, which windows we leave open in summer." I thought he was just being protective, but now. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked gently. "He said it was a secret project to improve our home security as a gift. He made me promise not to spoil the surprise." She looked down ashamed. "I'm sorry, Mom." I hugged her tightly. "This is not your fault. Jake manipulated you." Later that evening, while Lily was working on homework, the doorbell rang. A delivery person handed me a padded envelope with no return address. My name was printed in block letters. Inside was a USB drive and a handwritten note. "For your protection. You're being watched." My hands shaking, I plugged the drive into my laptop. It contained dozens of surveillance photos, me getting coffee at my regular cafe, picking up dry cleaning, working through the window of my home office. Several showed Lily at soccer practice at her friend's house, walking to the school bus. The most disturbing ones were taken through the windows of our home at night. I felt violated, exposed, and terrified all at once. Someone had been following us for weeks, photographing our every move. The timestamps showed some were taken just 3 days ago. I called Tracy immediately. While waiting for her to arrive, I began systematically checking our house. Under my desk, I found a small device similar to the ones at my parents' house. Another was hidden behind a picture frame in the hallway. Tracy arrived with her partner, officially documenting the devices and taking the USB drive as evidence. "This crosses every line, Selena. We need to file a police report." "But I don't know for certain it was Jake," I said, though I had little doubt. "The pattern fits with what you found at your parents' house," Tracy pointed out. "And this level of surveillance takes time and resources. Has Jake ever shown interest in surveillance technology before?" I remembered Jake's brief job at a security company 3 years ago, how enthusiastically he'd talked about the equipment. "Yes, he has experience with this stuff." That night, after installing temporary security cameras, Tracy had brought Lily and I sat down to discuss safety plans. We were in the middle of creating new passwords when the motion alert from our new front door camera sounded. On the screen, we watched a hooded figure approaching our porch. The person tested the doorknob, then moved to peer through the living room window. Tracy had programmed the security system to automatically alert police for any motion after 11 at night. Within minutes, patrol cars arrived with lights flashing, but the figure had already disappeared. The officers searched the area and found nothing, but the security footage clearly showed the intruder's face when he looked up at one point. Jake. When I called my parents to confront them, their response chilled me. "Jake was here with us all night," Mom insisted. "You must be mistaken." "We have him on camera, Mom." "Security cameras can be wrong," Dad interjected. "Besides, Jake mentioned you've been acting paranoid lately. He's worried about your mental health." The gaslighting was so blatant it took my breath away. "Are you seriously going to lie to protect him when he's stalking your granddaughter?" "No one is stalking anyone," Mom said firmly. "You're blowing this out of proportion." The next day, despite my parents' protests, I filed a police report and began the process for a restraining order. Tracy helped navigate the paperwork. The order won't be perfect protection, she warned, but it establishes a legal record and can help if things escalate. That afternoon, my banking app notified me of login attempts from an unrecognized device. My email showed similar alerts. I spent hours changing every password, setting up two-factor authentication, and freezing my credit. Jake had digital fingerprints everywhere in my life, and I was only beginning to understand how deep his obsession ran. After 3 days of disturbed sleep and constant vigilance, I decided to take a week off work. My clients were understanding when I explained I had a family emergency, and I was fortunate enough to have an assistant who could handle immediate deadlines. With Lily safely at school, where I had alerted administrators about the situation, I began digging deeper into Jake's recent activities. Something didn't add up. He had always been self-centered and manipulative, but this level of obsession seemed to have emerged suddenly. I started with social media, methodically going through his profiles. His recent posts were sparse and increasingly paranoid, hinting at conspiracies and betrayals. Comments from friends showed concern about his mental state. Next, I called his last known workplace, a software company where he'd worked in the IT department. Pretending to be a reference checker for his new job application, I spoke with HR. "I'm afraid Mr. Harrison is not eligible for rehire," the representative said cautiously. "I can't discuss the specifics, but there was an incident 6 months ago that resulted in his termination." Through mutual acquaintances, I eventually connected with Megan, who had worked with Jake. She was initially hesitant to speak, but when I explained my concerns about my safety, she relented. Jake became fixated on a female coworker, Megan revealed. He monitored her computer activity, followed her after work, and created elaborate stories about their relationship which didn't exist. When she complained, he claimed he was protecting her from threats in the office. He was fired after they found surveillance equipment in her car. The company had kept the incident quiet, allowing Jake to resign rather than face termination on his record. They hadn't pressed charges at the woman's request. She just wanted him gone. This pattern of behavior wasn't new. It had simply found a new target: me. I drove to my parents' neighborhood but parked a block away. Instead of visiting them, I knocked on their neighbor's door. Mrs. Lawton had lived next door to my parents for 20 years and had always been kind to me. "Selena, what a lovely surprise," she said, inviting me in for tea. After some catching up, I carefully steered the conversation. "I've been a bit worried about my brother. He's been staying with my parents, hasn't he?" Mrs. Lawton looked confused. "Jake, he hasn't been staying there. He's been coming and going at all hours, though. Your father converted the garage into some kind of workshop for him last month. There's been a lot of activity out there late at night." This was news to me. A workshop. That's what your mother called it. They installed new locks, blacked out the windows. Your father said Jake needed a private space for his new business venture. After leaving Mrs. Lawton's, I drove past my parents' house, noticing for the first time the garage modifications she'd mentioned. Heavy curtains covered the windows, and a new security camera was mounted above the side door. When I returned home, Lily was sitting at the kitchen counter, her expression troubled. "What's wrong?" I asked, setting down my purse. She wordlessly held up a small flash drive. "I found this in the front pocket of my backpack. I don't know how it got there." My blood ran cold. "Don't touch it anymore." "Where's your backpack been today?" "Just in my locker at school and next to me in classes." I put on disposable gloves from the kitchen drawer before carefully taking the drive. We needed to see what was on it, but I was wary of plugging unknown devices into our computers after what Tracy had told me about malware and spyware. I called Tracy, who arrived with a department laptop specifically designed for examining potential evidence. She connected the flash drive while Lily and I watched anxiously. The drive contained a folder labeled Protection Plan. Inside were dozens of files meticulously organizing information about our lives. One document, titled Extraction Protocol, detailed a plan to relocate Lily and me to a cabin in rural Vermont. "This is insane," Tracy muttered as we scrolled through the files. There were maps with routes marked, schedules of our activities, and a list of supplies already purchased. Most disturbing was a journal documenting Jake's thoughts, revealing his increasingly delusional mindset. S and L remain unaware of the dangers surrounding them. Their security measures are laughably inadequate. I've been monitoring potential threats for 3 months. Parents refuse to understand the necessity of my intervention. When the extraction is complete, they'll see I was right all along. S will finally appreciate everything I've done for her protection. The journal entries became more disturbing over time, showing Jake believed he was saving us from imagined threats. He wrote about how I had always needed his protection since childhood but was too stubborn to admit it. He described plans to rescue us from our independent lives and create a secure family unit under his control. "This isn't just stalking," Tracy said gravely. "This is a detailed abduction plan." The final document was a deed for a remote property in Vermont purchased 3 months ago in a trust with my name on it without my knowledge or consent. I felt physically ill. How could he do this? How could my parents let this happen? "I don't think we can wait on that restraining order," Tracy said. "And Selena, you need to confront your parents with this information. They need to understand what they're enabling." The next morning, I dropped Lily at Tracy's house, where she would stay with Tracy's daughter while I went to see my parents. I brought printouts of Jake's plans and steeled myself for the confrontation. They seemed unsurprised to see me, which immediately put me on edge. Dad invited me into the living room while Mom hovered nervously. "I know about Jake's workshop in the garage," I said without preamble. "And I know about his plans to abduct me and Lily." Mom's hand flew to her mouth, but Dad's expression remained frustratingly neutral. "That's a very serious accusation, Selena." I placed the documents on the coffee table. "It's not an accusation. It's evidence. Your son has been stalking us for months. He's planning to take us against our will to a property he bought in Vermont. And somehow I think you already knew parts of this." Mom began to cry, but it felt performative. "He's sick, Selena. He needs help, not police and restraining orders." "So you knew," I pressed. Dad finally sighed. "We knew he was concerned about your safety. He told us he was developing a security system for your home. And the cameras, the recordings, the photos taken through our windows at night. He said it was temporary just to assess your vulnerabilities," Dad admitted. "We told him it wasn't right, but he was so convinced you were in danger. He lost his job for stalking a coworker," I revealed. "Did you know that too?" The flicker in my father's eyes told me they did. "That was a misunderstanding," Mom interjected. "The woman overreacted." I felt a surge of anger. "Just like I'm overreacting now, Jake needs professional help, and instead you're enabling dangerous behavior that's putting your granddaughter at risk." "He was diagnosed last year," Dad finally admitted. "Delusional disorder with paranoid features. He started medication, seemed to improve, but then stopped taking it. Said it dulled his senses and he couldn't protect properly without his edge. And you didn't think to warn me." My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. "We thought we could manage it," Mom said defensively. "Keep him focused on harmless projects. The garage workspace was supposed to channel his energy. While you were managing him, he was planning to abduct your granddaughter." "He wouldn't hurt you," Dad insisted. "He loves you." "This isn't love," I said, jabbing my finger at the documents. "This is obsession. And if you won't help me stop him, I'll do it myself." "If you call the police," Mom said, her voice suddenly hard, "you'll destroy his life. Is that what you want? To ruin your brother's future because he cares too much?" I stared at her in disbelief. "You're still choosing him. After seeing all this evidence, you're still prioritizing him over the safety of your granddaughter." "We're trying to protect both our children," Dad said. "No. You're protecting your son at the expense of your daughter and granddaughter." I gathered the documents. "I'm getting the restraining order today. I'm pressing charges for stalking. And if you try to interfere, I'll include you in the complaint for aiding and abetting." As I walked out, Mom called after me. "He's your brother, Selena. Family stands by." "Family." I turned at the door. "Family protects each other from harm, not enables it. Lily and I are family too, but you've forgotten that." Driving away, I felt both heartbroken and strangely liberated. For the first time, I saw with perfect clarity the dysfunctional patterns that had shaped our family for decades. My parents had always protected Jake at my expense, but I had never realized just how dangerous that protection could become. That evening, Tracy invited Lily and me to stay at her house temporarily. Until we know Jake's whereabouts, your place isn't safe, she insisted. Her modest 3-bedroom home felt like a fortress compared to our compromised space. Tracy's daughter Amy was 16 and immediately took Lily under her wing, showing her the guest room they would share and offering welcome distraction with normal teenage activities. The restraining order should be processed by tomorrow, Tracy informed me as we sat in her kitchen. I've alerted patrol units to keep an eye on your house and parents' property. I nodded, gratefully, exhaustion washing over me. I can't believe it's come to this. Family situations are the hardest, Tracy said gently. But you're doing the right thing. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You can't hide from someone who loves you enough to watch over you. Tracy immediately took the phone, documenting the message and adding it to the growing file of evidence. We'll trace this, but I'm betting it's Jake. Over the next 2 days, the messages continued, each more disturbing than the last. The cabin is ready for us. You'll be safe there. Lily's room has the purple walls she mentioned wanting last Christmas. I've been protecting you your whole life. Why are you fighting me now? On the 3rd morning of our stay at Tracy's, my father called. Jake is missing, he said without greeting. He's not answering his phone and his things are gone from the garage. Have you reported it to the police? I asked. Of course not, Dad scoffed. He's a grown man. He probably needed space after your accusations. Dad, he's not just missing. He's escalating. Did you check if your guns are still in the house? The silence on the other end confirmed my fears. Dad, are the guns gone? Just the handgun, he admitted reluctantly, and some cash from our emergency fund. I felt the blood drain from my face. Call the police. Now, tell them everything. Selena, you're overreacting again. Jake would never. He's armed, delusional, and fixated on protecting me and Lily by taking us to a remote location. How exactly am I overreacting? After I hung up, Tracy immediately notified her department. Jake's information was entered into the system as a potentially armed and dangerous individual experiencing a mental health crisis. That afternoon, an email arrived from Jake's account. The subject line read, "My mission." Attached was a video file. Tracy insisted on viewing it first on a secure device. When she returned from the other room, her expression was grim. You need to see this, but prepare yourself, she warned. In the video, Jake sat in what appeared to be the Vermont cabin walls covered with photos of Lily and me. He spoke calmly, eerily detached about his mission to save us from perceived threats. I've been protecting you since we were children, Selena, he said. Remember when Tommy Mitchell bullied you in 4th grade? He stopped after I visited him, didn't he? You never knew what I did to keep you safe. No one did. Jake detailed other interventions throughout our lives, incidents I'd never connected to him. Boyfriends who suddenly broke things off. A college roommate who moved out unexpectedly. A competing business that mysteriously closed down 3 years ago. I've always been your guardian, he continued. But you've grown careless, independent. You don't see the dangers. Your so-called friend Tracy is poisoning your mind against me, against family. The police can't protect you like I can. He held up what looked like my father's handgun. I won't let anyone stop me from completing my mission. Not Mom and Dad, not the police, not even you. The video ended with Jake promising to bring us home soon. Tracy immediately dispatched officers to the Vermont property, but I knew Jake wouldn't be there. He was too methodical to reveal his actual location. We need to move you again, Tracy decided. Somewhere he wouldn't expect. We gathered our few belongings and prepared to leave when Tracy's front door camera alerted. The screen showed Jake standing on her porch, looking directly into the camera. He found us. Lily whispered, terror in her voice. Tracy drew her off-duty weapon. Go to the bathroom at the end of the hall. Lock the door. Don't come out until I call you. Holding Lily close, I retreated down the hallway as Tracy radioed for backup. Through the bathroom window, I could hear Jake's voice unnaturally calm as he called my name. Selena, I know you're in there. It's time to go home. I've prepared everything. Tracy's stern voice responded. Jake Harrison, you are violating a restraining order. Step back from the property now. This doesn't concern you, Jake replied. This is family business. I'm a police officer, and you're trespassing with a weapon. This became police business the moment you showed up at my door. There was a pause, then the sound of breaking glass. Lily stifled a scream as I pulled her into the shower stall as far from the door as possible. Shouting erupted from the front of the house, followed by a single gunshot. Lily began to sob silently, and I held her so tight I could feel her heart racing against mine. Minutes later, though, it felt like hours. Sirens wailed outside. A firm knock came at the bathroom door. "Selena, it's Tracy. It's safe now." Jake fled when backup arrived. When we emerged, the front window was shattered, but Tracy appeared unharmed. "The shot went into the ceiling," she explained. "He ran when he heard the sirens." Police established a perimeter around the neighborhood, but Jake had vanished. The manhunt expanded as officers searched the surrounding areas. That evening, as we settled into a hotel room under police protection, I received an alert on my laptop. Someone had created Instagram and Facebook accounts in my name, posting bizarre messages about going off-grid with my protective brother and leaving my toxic friends behind. "He's trying to control the narrative," Tracy explained as she documented the fake accounts. "Make it look like you went willingly." Just after midnight, my phone rang with a call from the local police. Jake had broken into our actual home, tripping the new security system. By the time officers arrived, he had barricaded himself inside, claiming I had invited him to secure the property. After a tense 2-hour standoff, SWAT officers entered and took Jake into custody. No one was injured, but the reality of how far things had escalated hit me like a physical blow. My parents called minutes later, their voices frantic. "The police arrested Jake, Mom," cried. "They had guns pointed at him." "Your own brother?" "He broke into my house with a weapon, Mom. After stalking us for months. After threatening us on video. He needs help, not jail," she insisted. "Yes, he does need help," I agreed. "Professional help that you've been preventing him from getting by, enabling his delusions." "This is your fault," Dad said coldly. "If you hadn't escalated things with restraining orders and police, he wouldn't have felt cornered." Their blame was the final straw. Years of sublimated anger burst forth. "My fault. My 15-year-old daughter is traumatized because your son planned to abduct us. He's been stalking us, breaking into our home, threatening us with a gun, and somehow I'm to blame. No, this stops now. You've chosen Jake over me my entire life, and now you're choosing him over your granddaughter's safety. I'm done." I hung up, hands shaking with emotion. Lily came from the adjoining hotel room, her eyes red from crying but her expression resolute. I heard she said simply, "You did the right thing, Mom." As I held my brave daughter, I realized we had crossed a threshold. The family I had known was gone, but perhaps that was necessary to build something healthier from the ashes. Jake was held for psychiatric evaluation following his arrest. The evidence against him was overwhelming: the surveillance equipment, the detailed abduction plans, the threatening messages, the break-in at our home, and the confrontation at Tracy's house. The district attorney assured me they were taking the case seriously. My parents, however, remained in denial. They hired an expensive attorney for Jake and launched a campaign of pressure to make me drop the charges. "He's being treated like a common criminal," Mom sobbed during a phone call 3 days after his arrest. "The jail psychiatrist says he needs long-term care, not incarceration. If you just drop the charges, he can get treatment at Lakeside Psychiatric Center." "The charges are what's getting him treatment, Mom," I explained for what felt like the 100th time. "The court can mandate treatment he wouldn't get otherwise. But a criminal record will ruin his life," Dad interjected, having picked up another extension. "Is that what you want for your brother?" "What I want is for my daughter to feel safe again. What I want is for Jake to get the help he clearly needs. What I want is for you both to acknowledge how serious this situation is, instead of trying to sweep it under the rug like you've done his entire life." Their response was to increase the pressure. They called mutual friends, extended family members, even clients whose contact information Jake had apparently collected. They told a carefully edited version of events. Jake was struggling with mental health issues, overprotective of his sister, and now being criminalized for what was essentially a family misunderstanding. Some people believed them. I received uncomfortable calls from acquaintances suggesting I was overreacting, that family should handle these matters privately. Others who had witnessed Jake's increasingly erratic behavior over the years offered support. A week after Jake's arrest, Tracy connected me with Dr. Eleanor Michaels, a psychiatrist who specialized in delusional disorders. Based on the reports I've reviewed, your brother appears to be suffering from what we call persecutory and erotomanic delusions, Dr. Michaels explained during our consultation. He believes he must protect you from imagined threats, and he's convinced himself that you secretly want or need this protection. How long has he been like this? I asked. These disorders typically develop gradually. The seeds may have been present for years, but significant stressors can trigger full manifestation. Has Jake experienced major life changes or failures recently? I thought about his job loss, failed relationships, financial struggles. Several, I admitted. And your parents' response protecting and enabling him likely reinforced his delusions rather than challenging them. When mental illness goes untreated, it rarely stays static. It progresses. Can he get better? With proper medication therapy and support, many patients achieve significant improvement. But untreated delusions this severe rarely resolve on their own. Dr. Michaels asked if she could speak with Lily and me together to help us process what we'd experienced. During that session, Lily revealed the full extent of Jake's interactions with her over the past year. He would text me asking weird questions about Mom, she admitted. Like whether she was dating anyone, if she seemed happy, if she ever mentioned feeling unsafe. He said it was because he wanted to get her the perfect birthday present, but it felt off. Why didn't you tell me? I asked gently. He said you wouldn't understand. That you were too proud to accept help. She looked down at her hands. And he said if I told you it would ruin the surprise and make you upset with him. He made me promise to keep it between us. Dr. Michaels explained that this was classic grooming behavior, isolating Lily from me by creating secrets, positioning himself as an ally who understood things I wouldn't, gradually normalizing inappropriate boundaries. Your instincts were good, she told Lily. You felt something was wrong, and eventually you warned your mother when things escalated. That took courage. 3 days later, I received an unexpected call from Jake's assigned court psychiatrist, Dr. Renner. Ms. Harrison, I've reviewed your brother's case extensively, and with his permission, I wanted to discuss some aspects of his condition with you, he began. There's important context you should know. Dr. Renner explained that Jake's fixation on protecting me wasn't new. During their sessions, Jake had revealed a lifelong pattern of self-appointed guardianship that began in childhood. He describes a formative incident when you were 8 and he was 5, Dr. Renner said. You apparently fell from a tree in your backyard and broke your arm. He believes he should have prevented this, that he failed you. The memory was fuzzy, but I remembered the fall and the subsequent hospital visit. That was 30 years ago, I said. And it was an accident. In Jake's mind, it became a defining moment. He began to see himself as responsible for your safety. This role gave him purpose and, importantly, attention from your parents. They reinforced this dynamic by praising his protectiveness, rather than establishing appropriate boundaries. As we talked further, Dr. Renner revealed that Jake had been obsessively monitoring me for most of our adult lives, not just recently. He had kept journals documenting my activities, relationships, and perceived threats for nearly 2 decades. The recent escalation coincides with his job loss and your daughter becoming a teenager, Dr. Renner explained. He began to see Lily as another person he needed to protect, but also as someone competing for your attention. I felt physically ill at the revelation. So this has been happening for years, and I never knew. Your parents were aware of some aspects, Dr. Renner confirmed. They've admitted to noticing concerning behaviors but minimized them as brotherly concern. When he began installing surveillance equipment in their home 6 months ago, they allowed it because he framed it as home security upgrades. Armed with this new information, I decided it was time for another confrontation with my parents. This time, I brought Dr. Michaels with me for support and clarity. We met at a neutral location, a private room at the local library. Mom and Dad arrived looking defensive and exhausted. We're not changing our minds about supporting Jake, Dad said immediately. I'm not asking you to abandon him, I replied calmly. I'm asking you to stop enabling behavior that's hurting all of us, including Jake. Dr. Michaels gently guided the conversation, helping my parents understand the severity of Jake's condition and their role in its progression. By treating his obsessive behavior as normal concern, you've reinforced his delusions, she explained. He needs professional intervention, boundaries, and consequences, not protection from them. We never thought it would go this far, Mom said, tears streaming down her face. He always said he just wanted to keep Selena safe. Did you know he's been stalking me for years? I asked directly. Their exchanged glance told me everything. You did know, I whispered, the betrayal cutting deep. Not stalking, Dad objected. Checking in. Being attentive. He had journals documenting my daily movements for 20 years, I countered. He interfered with my relationships. He tracked me without my knowledge or consent. What would you call that? He's your brother, Mom repeated, as if that explained everything. That doesn't give him the right to control my life or terrorize my daughter. The conversation went in circles, with moments of seeming breakthrough followed by retreat into denial. By the end, my parents had admitted more than ever before about what they'd observed and ignored over the years, but they still couldn't fully acknowledge their complicity. We love both our children, Dad insisted. We were trying to protect everyone. By sacrificing my safety for Jake's comfort, I responded. That's not love. That's dysfunction. As we prepared to leave, Mom asked tearfully if they could see Lily. Not yet, I said firmly. She's still processing the trauma of having her uncle plan to abduct her. When she's ready, if she's ever ready, we can discuss supervised visits. She's our granddaughter, and her well-being comes before your feelings right now. Walking away from that meeting, I felt a strange mixture of grief and liberation. The family I had tried so hard to please, to belong to, had never truly put my needs on equal footing with Jake's. Recognizing that truth hurt tremendously, but also freed me from decades of seeking approval I would never receive. That evening, I received supportive messages from 2 cousins and my father's sister, all of whom had witnessed the family dynamics over the years, but never felt it was their place to intervene. What your parents did to you wasn't right, my aunt wrote. Always favoring Jake, making excuses for him. I should have said something years ago, but your father would have cut me off completely. I'm sorry, Selena. You deserved better. For the first time, I realized I wasn't alone in seeing the dysfunction. Others had noticed but remained silent, trapped in the family system just as I had been. Their support, though late, helped validate my experience and strengthen my resolve to break the cycle. With Dr. Michael's encouragement, I began attending a support group for family estrangement and survivors of stalking. Hearing others' stories, their guilt, grief, and eventual healing gave me hope that Lily and I could find our way forward with or without my parents in our lives. Family systems resist change. Dr. Michaels explained during one of our sessions. When you set healthy boundaries, those who benefited from the dysfunction will push back hardest. Your strength threatens the system they depend on. As Jake's case proceeded through the legal system, my parents continued their campaign to pressure me into dropping charges. But with each attempt, their influence over me weakened. I was finding my voice, my boundaries, and my power possibly for the first time in my life. 2 weeks after Jake's arrest, a preliminary hearing was scheduled. The district attorney, Sandra Morris, met with me the day before to prepare. The evidence is compelling, she assured me, reviewing the files spread across her desk. The surveillance equipment, the documented stalking, the break-in, the confrontation at Officer Chen's home, the firearm. It's a strong case. What about his mental health issues? I asked. My parents keep saying he needs treatment, not punishment. The two aren't mutually exclusive, Sandra explained. The court can mandate psychiatric treatment as part of any sentence. In fact, that's often more effective than voluntary treatment, which can be abandoned when it becomes challenging. At the courthouse the next morning, I saw my parents for the first time since our meeting with Dr. Michaels. They sat on the opposite side of the courtroom, pointedly avoiding eye contact. Next to them was Blake Thornton, a high-priced criminal defense attorney, known for representing wealthy clients in our area. Jake entered in handcuffs, looking pale and disheveled. When he saw me, his expression shifted from blank to intensely focused, as if I were the only person in the room. I forced myself to hold his gaze, refusing to show fear, despite the chill that ran down my spine. The hearing proceeded with formal charges: stalking, breaking, and entering, illegal surveillance, violation of a restraining order, and illegal possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. Jake pleaded not guilty to all charges, with his attorney citing diminished capacity due to mental illness. Outside the courtroom, Blake Thornton approached me with a calculated smile. "Miss Harrison, a word. I believe we can resolve this unfortunate situation without further trauma to your family." Tracy, who had accompanied me for support, stepped closer protectively. "My client is prepared to enter a residential treatment facility immediately," Thornton continued. "Your parents have arranged placement at Lakeside, an excellent program. In exchange, we ask that you consider supporting reduced charges." "Mr. Thornton, your client terrorized my daughter and me for months," I replied steadily. "This isn't a misunderstanding to be smoothed over." "No one was physically harmed," he countered. "And family matters are always complex. A trial would be public, every detail examined, family history exposed. Is that really what you want?" The implied threat was clear. They would make this as messy and embarrassing as possible. "If you're suggesting my client should feel ashamed for protecting herself and her child, that's exactly the kind of manipulation that enabled this situation in the first place," Tracy interjected. Thornton's smile tightened. "I'll let you consider the offer. Family healing is possible, Miss Harrison, but not from opposite sides of a courtroom." As he walked away, my mother approached, hovering uncertainly a few feet away. "Can we talk, please? Just for a minute." Tracy squeezed my arm supportively and stepped back to give us privacy. "Jake's doctor says he's responding well to medication," Mom said. "He's clearer now, beginning to understand what happened." "That's good," I said cautiously. "He needs treatment. The lawyer thinks we can get him into the residential program instead of prison. He'd be monitored, receive therapy. But we need your support." Her eyes pleaded with me. "It would just be a statement saying you believe treatment is appropriate. That's all. And if he stops taking his medication again, if he walks away from treatment," I challenged. "What's to stop him from resuming the stalking?" "He wouldn't do that," she insisted. "Not now that he understands." "You've been saying that for months, Mom. Years, apparently. But you knew he was obsessed with me and did nothing. Why should I trust your judgment now?" Her expression hardened. "Because I'm your mother. Because despite everything, we're still family. Family doesn't mean enabling dangerous behavior. It doesn't mean choosing one child's comfort over another child's safety." "You're being vindictive," she accused. "Punishing Jake for things that happened in childhood. Punishing us for not being perfect parents." The unfairness of her accusation stung, but I refused to be baited. "This isn't about punishment. It's about consequences, boundaries, and getting Jake the help he actually needs, not just what makes you feel better." In the weeks that followed, the pressure intensified. My parents' friends called to reason with me. Letters arrived from family members urging reconciliation. Jake's attorney filed motions to suppress evidence, claiming the surveillance equipment was installed with my parents' permission in their home. Most troubling were the whispers that began circulating in our community. Rumors that I was exaggerating the threat, that I had mental health issues of my own, that I was using the legal system for revenge over childhood rivalries. I learned that my parents had been sharing carefully edited versions of events, positioning themselves as concerned intermediaries, trying to help their troubled son while their vindictive daughter refused to cooperate. The gossip affected Lily at school. Though she had returned to classes with additional security measures in place, she found herself the subject of unwanted attention and questions. Madison asked if it was true that Uncle Jake was just trying to protect us, and I got him arrested because I misunderstood, she told me one evening. Her mom is friends with Grandma. My blood boiled at the thought of my mother using her social network to spread misinformation that affected Lily. "What did you tell her?" "I said that if someone hides cameras in your house and plans to kidnap you, it doesn't matter what they call it, it's wrong." She looked down at her homework. "I lost a friend today, but it's okay. True friends would believe me." Her maturity both impressed and saddened me. At 15, she shouldn't have to defend her right to feel safe. The district attorney called to inform me that Jake's lawyer had made a formal offer. Jake would plead guilty to reduced charges of harassment and illegal surveillance in exchange for court-mandated treatment at a private facility, with all other charges dropped. "It's not uncommon in cases with significant mental health components," Sandra explained. "The question is whether it serves justice, and importantly, whether it provides adequate protection for you and your daughter." "What do you think?" I asked. "The plea would establish legal consequences while ensuring treatment. The restraining order would remain in effect. but it's a lighter outcome than what we might achieve at trial." She paused. "That said, trials are unpredictable and stressful for victims. This is ultimately your decision." I consulted with Dr. Michaels Tracy, and most importantly, Lily. We discussed the pros and cons of accepting the plea versus proceeding to trial. "I just want to feel safe again," Lily said. "And I want Uncle Jake to get help so he doesn't do this to anyone else." Her compassion, even after everything she'd experienced, humbled me. The night before I needed to give the district attorney my decision, my father called. "I know we've been at odds," he began awkwardly, "but I wanted to tell you something before you make your decision about Jake's case." "I'm listening," I said, bracing myself for more manipulation. "I visited Jake yesterday. The medication. It's changed him. He's lucid in a way I haven't seen in years." Dad's voice cracked. "He asked me why we didn't get him help sooner. Said he's been fighting these thoughts, these compulsions for so long, and we just kept telling him it was normal to be protective." I remained silent, processing his words. "I'm not asking you to drop anything," he continued. "I just thought you should know that he's finally getting help and he's responding. Whatever you decide about the plea deal, that's your right." "Thank you for telling me," I said, surprised by his apparent shift. "And Selena, your mother and we've started seeing a therapist ourselves. We've got a lot to understand about how we contributed to all this. I don't expect your forgiveness. I just wanted you to know." After we hung up, I sat in my home office staring at the photos on my wall. Pictures of Lily growing up. A few older family photos from happier times. The complex web of love, hurt, protection, and betrayal that defined my family couldn't be untangled easily. The next morning, I informed Sandra that I would accept the plea agreement with 2 additional conditions. Jake must waive all rights to contest the permanent restraining order protecting Lily and me, and his release from the treatment facility would require psychiatric clearance and a court review. "I think that's wise," Sandra said. "I'll make it happen." When Jake appeared in court to enter his plea, I attended with Tracy beside me. He looked markedly different, still thin but more present. His eyes clear as they met mine briefly across the courtroom. As the judge reviewed the terms of the plea agreement, I felt a complex mixture of emotions. Relief that this chapter was closing. Sadness for what our family had become. Anger at the years of manipulation and enabling that led to this point. But also unexpectedly a small seed of hope that with proper treatment, Jake might finally find stability. After the hearing, Jake's attorney delivered a sealed envelope to me. Inside was a handwritten letter from Jake. "Selena, I am not writing to ask forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable. I violated your trust, your privacy, and your sense of safety. The medications are helping me see clearly for the first time in years. The thoughts that seemed so reasonable before now terrify me. I understand why you needed to protect yourself and Lily from me. You were right to do so. I am committed to treatment and to respecting the boundaries the court has established. You deserved a better brother than I have been. I hope someday to be worthy of being Lily's uncle again, but I understand if that day never comes. Jake." The letter wasn't a magical resolution, but it was the first acknowledgement from Jake that his behavior had been wrong, not misunderstood, not well-intentioned, but wrong. It was a small step toward reality in a situation that had been distorted by delusion for too long. As news of the plea agreement spread through our community, the rumors gradually shifted. Several of my parents' friends reached out with apologies for their initial reactions. 2 women contacted me privately to share similar experiences with stalking that they had never reported out of shame or fear. I realized that by standing firm, by refusing to minimize what had happened, I had perhaps made it easier for others to recognize and name their own experiences. The burden of public exposure that Jake's attorney had wielded as a threat had become unexpectedly a form of liberation. 6 months after Jake began his court-mandated treatment program, Lily and I moved to a new home across town. We hadn't originally planned to move, but as we packed up the old house, we realized how many spaces had been contaminated by Jake's surveillance. Each room held memories of violated privacy, of fear. The new house, a charming craftsman with a wraparound porch and a garden, Lily immediately claimed as her project represented our fresh start. I'd taken steps to increase our security and privacy. New unlisted phone numbers. Enhanced home security. A post office box instead of home delivery. Small changes that helped us reclaim our sense of safety. My business had weathered the disruption surprisingly well. After a brief hiatus, I'd returned to work with renewed creativity and focus. Some clients had drifted away during the upheaval, but new ones had come drawn by referrals and my refreshed portfolio. Lily, now 16, had shown remarkable resilience. Though she still occasionally checked windows at night and preferred to sit facing doors in public places, she had reclaimed her teenage life with determination. She joined a peer support group for teens who had experienced trauma, eventually becoming a mentor to newer members. "Mom, can I invite Jordan and Kaylee for a study group tomorrow?" she asked one evening as we prepared dinner together. "We have that huge biology exam next week." "Of course," I replied, smiling at the normalcy of her request. "I'll make snacks." "Thanks. And is it okay if I go to the self-defense class at the community center on Saturday? Miss Phillips is organizing it for girls from school." I paused, knife hovering over the cutting board. "Self-defense. It's not because I'm scared," Lily clarified quickly. "It's about feeling empowered. Knowing I can protect myself makes me less afraid, not more." Her insight impressed me yet again. "That sounds like a great idea. Maybe I'll join you." As our new life took shape, I maintained minimal contact with my parents. Our interactions were limited to brief updates, usually by text. They had continued their therapy, according to my father's occasional messages, working to understand their role in enabling Jake's behavior and the family dynamics that had prioritized his needs above all else. Jake remained in the residential facility where his treatment was progressing steadily. His doctors reported that he was fully compliant with medication and therapy, gaining insight into his delusional thinking patterns. He respected the restraining order, absolutely, making no attempts to contact Lily or me. Though I had no plans to reestablish a relationship with him, I found myself gradually releasing the constant vigilance, the fear that he would reappear in our lives uninvited. The legal boundaries had held. The treatment was working. We were safe. In an unexpected development, I had connected with a network of other survivors of family estrangement and stalking. What began as seeking support for myself evolved into providing it for others. I started a local support group that met monthly in a community center conference room. "You've helped us all so much," said Marissa, a woman whose brother had stalked her for years before she found the courage to seek help. "Knowing someone else has been through this and come out the other side, it makes it possible to believe we can too." I hadn't planned to become an advocate, but the experience had changed me. I couldn't return to who I'd been before, nor did I want to. The painful journey had revealed strength I hadn't known I possessed, and a voice I'd kept muted for too long. On a crisp autumn morning, 8 months after the court case concluded, I was gardening in our front yard when a familiar car pulled into our driveway. My parents stepped out looking uncertain. They had never visited our new home. I hadn't invited them, and they had respected that boundary until now. Seeing them standing awkwardly by their car triggered a complex wave of emotions, wariness, residual anger, but also curiosity about what had brought them here unannounced. "Mom, Dad, what are you doing here?" I asked, setting down my gardening trowel and removing my gloves. "We should have called first," Mom acknowledged. "We can leave if this isn't a good time." There was something different about her tone, a hesitancy that replaced her usual certainty. A respect for my boundaries that had never been there before. "No, it's fine. Lily isn't home, she's at a friend's house." I gestured toward the porch. "We can sit outside if you'd like." As we settled into the wicker chairs, an awkward silence stretched between us. Finally, Dad spoke. "We've been doing a lot of work in therapy," he began. "Learning about enmeshment, enabling family systems. Hard stuff to face at our age." Mom nodded. "We thought we were protecting Jake all those years. But our therapist helped us see that we were actually failing him by not getting him proper help, and we were failing you by making his needs paramount. We've brought something for you," Dad said, producing a leather-bound journal. "It's not easy reading, but our therapist suggested complete transparency might be the only path forward." The journal contained their reflections on our family history incidents I remembered, and others I'd forgotten or never known. Pages of painful self-examination about their parenting choices, the different standards they'd held Jake and me to, the warning signs they'd ignored. "We're not asking for forgiveness," Mom said, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. "We're not even asking for a relationship if that's not what you want. We just needed you to know that we understand now what we couldn't see before. Or wouldn't see," Dad corrected gently. "Let's be honest, Martha. We chose not to see a lot of things because facing them was too difficult. Their accountability, unfiltered by excuses or deflection, caught me off guard. This wasn't the defensiveness I'd come to expect, the subtle blame shifting that had characterized our interactions for decades. "I appreciate this," I said finally. "It can't undo what happened, but it matters that you're acknowledging it." "How is Lily?" Mom asked cautiously. "We miss her terribly, but we understand why she hasn't wanted to see us. She's doing well. Resilient, thoughtful. She's starting to look at colleges, if you can believe it." "Already?" Dad smiled sadly. "Time goes so quickly." We talked a while longer about neutral topics: the garden, the neighborhood, a local art exhibition. As they prepared to leave, Mom hesitated. "Selena, would you consider, maybe someday, letting us be part of your lives again? In whatever way feels safe for you and Lily?" I considered her question carefully. "I can't make promises right now. Trust takes time to rebuild, especially after it's been broken so completely. But I'm not closing that door forever." They nodded, accepting this limited opening with grace I hadn't expected. After they left, I sat alone on the porch, processing the interaction. Their visit represented something I had never truly received from them before: respect for my boundaries, acknowledgement of their mistakes, and acceptance of the consequences without manipulation. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a beginning. That evening, when Lily returned, I told her about their visit. "How do you feel about it?" she asked maturely. "Cautiously optimistic," I admitted. "They seem to be doing genuine work on themselves. It's more accountability than they've ever shown before." Lily considered this. "I might be willing to see them sometime. Not alone and maybe not right away. But eventually." "There's no rush," I assured her. "We take this at our pace, not theirs." "You know what this reminds me of," Lily said. "Remember that damaged butterfly we found in the garden last spring? The one with the torn wing?" I nodded, recalling how we'd carefully provided it sugar water and a safe place to rest. "Everyone said it wouldn't survive, that we should just let nature take its course. But we gave it time and space to heal, and eventually it flew away." She smiled. "Maybe relationships can heal that way too, with time, space, and the right conditions. Not guaranteed, but possible." Her wisdom continually amazed me. "When did you get so insightful?" She shrugged. "I had a good teacher." As we sat together on our new porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold, I reflected on our journey. The family I had known was gone, that structure built on secrets, enabling and uneven loyalties had collapsed under the weight of truth. But from its ruins, something else was emerging. Something healthier, with boundaries that protected rather than imprisoned, with honesty that healed rather than wounded. The path forward wasn't perfectly clear. Relationships might be rebuilt or they might not. Jake might someday earn a carefully bounded place in our lives, or he might remain a chapter closed. My parents might continue their growth, or they might revert to old patterns. These uncertainties no longer frightened me as they once would have. I had learned that family isn't defined by unconditional tolerance of harmful behavior. True love sets boundaries. True support encourages growth, not dependence. And sometimes the most loving choice you can make is to stand firm in your truth, even when voices around you insist you should compromise your safety for the comfort of others. Lily reached over and squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of us, Mom. We're going to be okay." "Yes," I agreed, squeezing back. "We already are." Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members to protect yourself or your children? It's one of the hardest things we ever have to do, but sometimes it's necessary for everyone's well-being. I hope my story helps you feel less alone if you're facing similar challenges. Please comment below with your thoughts or experiences like this video. If it resonated with you, Subscribe for more stories that explore difficult family dynamics and share with someone who might need to hear they're not alone in their struggle. Thank you for listening, and remember that choosing your peace and safety isn't selfish. It's essential.